Welcome, dear viewers, to our channel. Today, we will talk about countries at risk of experiencing a scenario similar to Bangladesh, among which is Egypt, a country that observers predict may face the same uprising due to the similarity of crises. The American agency, Bloomberg, warned some dictatorial countries in the world about the potential repetition of the model of the Bengali revolution that ousted Prime Minister Sheikha Hasina, 76 years old, forcing her to resign and flee to India on August 5, 2024, after nearly 20 years of ruling the Asian country with an iron fist amid severe economic crises and the subjugation of her political decisions to her western neighbor, India. In a report by Bloomberg that highlights the similarities between the conditions that led to the revolution in Bangladesh and those in some countries, including India and Korea, among others with dictatorial rule, it stated that the current developments in Bangladesh carry deeper implications than the geopolitical situation. The report pointed out that a state of chaos on India's eastern border raises alarm bells for the large Indian economy, explaining that young people are seeking job opportunities from politicians they can hold accountable, rather than economic growth that lacks jobs amid a decline in democracy. Although the American report did not explicitly mention Egypt, the most populous Arab African country in the Middle East and North Africa with about 110 million people, and the owner of the second largest economy on the African continent, it generally discusses the same crises that sparked the youth revolution in Bangladesh, which completely align with Egypt's crises during the presidency of Abdel Fattah el-Sisi, according to observers. Observers noted the significant similarities in crises of political oppression, the closure of public space, and security brutality, alongside economic failure, the state's plunge into external debt, and the suffering of youth from unemployment, poverty, and poor conditions, among other crises that created the Bangladesh crisis, ultimately leading to a pure and overwhelming youth revolution that only calmed down with the ousting of the head of the regime. Weeks ago, thousands of protesting students stormed Hasina's residence in the capital, Dhaka, about 7 months after her victory in a fourth presidential term in January 2024, in elections that the protesters described as fraudulent, accusing her regime of tyranny, tightening the noose on the opposition, political arrests, enforced disappearances, extrajudicial killings, and other violations. These conditions were seen by speakers as having a significant resemblance to the situation in Egypt, where army leader Abdel Fattah el-Sisi seized power and staged a coup on July 3, 2013, against the first elected civilian president, burying the results of the youth revolution against Hosni Mubarak on January 25, 2011. The Bloomberg report pointed to the issue of unemployment, which neither Hasina in Bangladesh nor Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi, who began his third term addressing it, have been able to tackle, noting the impact of unemployment on youth, who represent the majority of their populations, and how its negative effects drove the youth of Bangladesh to revolution. This situation is also identical to the Egyptian case, where about 21.1 million young people, representing 20% of the population, suffer from unemployment at a rate of 6.7%, amid the dominance of nepotism, favoritism, and administrative corruption, with the military controlling appointments for all government jobs, which has led to public outrage, according to observers' readings. Bloomberg pointed out that feelings of frustration are infiltrating the souls in Bangladesh, indicating that democracy gives society a chance to express itself through the ballot boxes, hinting at the opposition's boycott of the elections in Bangladesh at the beginning of this year, which largely aligns with the political situation in Egypt. Sisi succeeded in reaching a third term for 6 years until 2030 in a quasi-ceremonial election, having previously excluded opposition candidate Ahmed Tantawi from the race, even imprisoning him and a group of his aides on charges of forging electoral mandates, which observers considered a political vendetta and punishment from Sisi against Tantawi. The American agency hinted that income in wealthy countries starts at $14,000, noting that the income of citizens in Bangladesh and India does not exceed $3,000, a figure close to the per capita income in Egypt, which is about $3,700, and which has decreased this year due to the deterioration of the local currency and the economic crises plaguing the country, according to World Bank data. At the end of the report, it warned India, emphasizing that it should draw the right lesson from these disturbances, in a message that speakers considered also directed at the Egyptian regime, stressing that it should heed this message before it is too late and before the anger escalates, which could undermine all that Sisi's state has achieved. In his reading of the American agency's report and its applicability to the Egyptian situation, Egyptian politician and media figure Dr. Hamza Zaba stated that there is a similarity in the political and social conditions between the Egyptian and Bangladeshi cases, but there is a difference in the regional circumstances surrounding Bangladesh, in terms of its regime's ties to India, and there is a struggle over who dominates the Dhaka government, India or Pakistan. Zaba, a former spokesperson for the Freedom and Justice Party, added that this is a very important element, pointing out, on the other hand, that dominance in Egypt exists from two sides, the economic side, from the UAE, and the political side, from Israel, and Zaba almost asserts that there is Emirati political and economic control over Cairo and Israeli control, by extension. He continued. Thus, the social and economic conditions between the Egyptian and Bangladeshi cases are similar, but the regional circumstances are not the same, and I see that the regional context always helps to mobilize public opinion in a single country in one way or another. The Egyptian politician emphasized that Egypt is being controlled, and thus there is a great difficulty in causing a revolution, but perhaps the conditions within the country itself are what will move the world towards revolution. He pointed out that what happened in the January 25, 2011 revolution in Egypt regarding the military's intervention resembles the military's intervention in Bangladesh now, because there was a network of interests that it was sponsoring, and usually the military does not appear at the forefront of events but is present behind the scenes. Zaba believes that, so far, the Egyptian authorities are completely controlling the situation through hard powers like the military and police, and thus the only significant similarity between Bangladesh and Egypt is the scene of people coming out in 2011, which raises the question, is it possible for the same scenario to be repeated? He answers, of course, it is possible. For his part, Egyptian researcher and academic Dr. Mohammed el-Zawawi stated that the problem is that there is a similarity between the Egyptian and Bangladeshi cases, but the difference is that the military rules directly in Egypt, and undoubtedly the military plays a decisive role in revolutions as we have seen in revolutions around the world and in the Arab region. El-Zawawi, a lecturer at the Sakarya University in Turkey, added that if the military remains neutral, a revolution will occur, and during the January 2011 revolution against Hosni Mubarak, the military remained neutral until the chances of Gamal Mubarak inheriting power were eliminated. He continued. But today the military rules with direct authority, and there have been some attempts to bring people to the streets over the past years, but they have failed due to the security grip and the tools of power in intimidating and suppressing those demanding political reform. The Egyptian academic went on to say, thus, perhaps the Egyptian people have despaired due to the lack of alternatives, and because they have discovered that even the alternatives are the hardest for them. People have come out more than once, and the alternative did not meet their aspirations due to the grip of the deep state. Therefore, el-Zawawi emphasized that Egypt needs a rescue plan through a coalition of opposition groups to present an economic plan to save the country, believing that this might make the eyes of Egyptians look towards a faction that could be the alternative, especially since there is currently no alternative and the military rules directly with no alternative. He added, people may go out to carry out revolutions or demonstrations, but in the end, the military controls the media, the judiciary, and everything, which has made hope for change at its lowest levels in Egypt, and the evidence is that people have started to seek to escape abroad. And if you survey the opinions of Egyptians through social media, you will find that most of them wish to emigrate. He pointed out that this situation means that there is despair over the reform of the severely corrupted conditions, and he believes that this is a plan by the regime considering that the large population consumes part of the state's general budget, such as energy subsidies. The smaller the population, the better for the current authority. He concluded his reading by saying, perhaps the youth of Bangladesh had hope for change, but in Egypt, unfortunately, hopes have greatly diminished that revolutionary change is the solution. Perhaps reform from within, perhaps the military itself will realize that the state is collapsing, and then works for change, but other than that, I believe that the conditions are more difficult in Egypt compared to Bangladesh. In his assessment of the extent of the similarity of the poor political, economic, and security situations between Egypt and Bangladesh, international law and relations expert Dr. Sayed Abu al-Khair believes that dictatorship and tyranny have one path, and they are an American-made product. Therefore, you find countries afflicted by dictators almost identical in everything, in all political, economic, and social fields. The Egyptian academic, in his talk, confirmed that, in the political field, you find a single opinion, and you find a formal democracy that has no relation to reality, adding that, in the economic field, you find debts, poverty, and unemployment, and the state's income and economy are managed for the benefit of the regime's faction only. He pointed out that, Western countries and governments fear the people and the rapid spread of revolutionary contagion, as happened during the Arab Spring in 2011, in Tunisia, Egypt, Syria, Libya, and Yemen, explaining that, the feeling of injustice does not differentiate between one country and another, between one person and another, and between one gender and another. Abu al-Khair believes that, the situation in Egypt has reached a dead end. The West fully realizes that Egypt is pregnant with an explosion. However, they are trying to delay it as much as possible, predicting that, what happened in Bangladesh will quench the anger in the Egyptian street. In his view of the reasons for the stirring of crises of political oppression, security repression, debt crises, and the dominance of the International Monetary Fund over the youth of Bangladesh, which did not stir the youth of Egypt, the international expert said, it is known that the Egyptian people do not revolt quickly, but no one knows when they will revolt, and a car accident could lead Egyptians to a revolution. He pointed out that, the Egyptian regime is putting immense pressure on the Egyptian people. Every day there is a crisis, and the pharaonic history has given the ruler throughout history a degree of sanctity and awe and fear of him. However, Abu al-Khair does not believe that, things will remain at the same pace, expressing his fear that, the military will take a preemptive step and instigate a revolution, like January 25, 2011, to remain the protector of the country and the people. In his comparison between the Egyptian and Bangladeshi situations, former Egyptian parliamentarian Reda Fahmy stated that, the revolution in Bangladesh, in terms of causes, motivations, and the general climate, is very similar to the January 25, 2011 revolution in Egypt, and the prominent reason in it is the issue of justice based on eliminating laws that legitimize job quotas at the expense of competence, alongside the issue of freedoms that are strongly present. The former head of the National Security Committee in the Egyptian parliament added that, another aspect of similarity is that it was led by students, as in January 25, the youth and student segment was strongly present, and they, if we want to be precise, ignited the first spark of the revolution in Egypt and also in Bangladesh. He continued. Similarly, the reactions from the police of Habib al-Adli in Egypt in 2011 were the same behavior that the police in Bangladesh exhibited, and also the behavior of the armed forces seems to be similar, except that the students in Bangladesh seem to have learned from the lessons of the Arab Spring. However, the Egyptian politician believes that, the revolution in Bangladesh does not resemble at all the potential upcoming revolution in Egypt, which no one can predict its timing, size, shape, or extent, nor its implications for the region. Therefore, everyone in the regional and international spheres is working to delay this overwhelming revolution. He predicted that, a revolution must occur in Egypt due to the deteriorating situation in the Egyptian case on all levels, and if we were to compare the revolution in Bangladesh or January 25 with what awaits the Egyptian state from a potential revolution, no one knows its timing, and the question remains about its timing, not whether it will explode or not. Fahmy stated that, there is no doubt that the situation in Egypt is worse now compared to January 25, 2011. There is no comparison in terms of the economic situation, the internal political situation, and in terms of the determinants of Egyptian national security, which has become threatened on all fronts. He pointed out that he does not mean the borders, clarifying that he means the files and issues that besiege the regime, starting from the Renaissance dam crisis and Nile water, the Eastern Mediterranean gas file, the issues raised about displacement in Sinai, the relinquishment of the islands of Tiran and Sanafir, and the sale of the country's land and assets to some Gulf countries, and so on. He also referred to the crises occurring on the Egyptian borders, confirming that, all of them are threatened, and the situation in Sudan, Gaza, and Libya is a witness, and all threaten Egyptian national security, and what is interesting is that the regime's performance in all these issues and files is extremely poor. He concluded by saying, therefore, it is expected that there will be very significant transformations in Egypt, predicting that, the situation will become catastrophic with the first spark of a revolution that may occur, hinting that he believes that, it will not happen like January 25, facing the existing regime, and I believe that no one will be able to control the scene in this case. However, Fahmy believes that the most important thing is, the implications of what will happen in Egypt, as Egypt, in terms of area and population, has a population of 111 million, which is comparable to the population of 3 countries in the region: Algeria, Iraq, and Saudi Arabia. He continued. In terms of civilizational and historical dimensions, it has a significant and influential role, but it has been diminished by the current regime. If we talk about the burning issues in the region, I mean here Israel and the conflict in the occupied Palestinian territories, Egypt's position was different in the past than it is now, and it is considered a partner in the massacres committed by Israel in Gaza and the rest of the occupied Palestinian territories. He believes that neither the Egyptian people nor the Arab and Islamic peoples can forgive Sisi's regime for the miserable state Egypt is in now, and turning it into a toy that everyone kicks around, making it a secondary state in the regional and international scene, which moves or controls Egyptian policies at the local, regional, and international levels, dictating to the Egyptian state what it should do. The Egyptian politician summarized his vision by saying, "All of this is a build-up and accumulation, and the whole region, especially Egypt, is floating on a sea of gunpowder that will explode in everyone's face at the earliest opportunity unless something different happens, but the repressive regime's ability to read the threats they face always leads them to wish for control and that security is stable, and we remember Mubarak when he said, 'Let them have fun.'" He pointed out that Sisi's regime, in particular, lives in the glory and arrogance of power, but I believe that this power cannot prevent a revolution of the Egyptian people, and the days are pregnant with significant events in the region. He concluded by clarifying that the flood of al-Aqsa has established a new equation of conflict between the systems of tyranny and oppression that resemble what Israel practices in Gaza, the West Bank, and the territories of 1948, and we have seen the heroism of the Palestinian people, and I believe that the contagion of freedom and resistance to injustice flows in the souls and conscience of all Arab and Islamic peoples, especially the Egyptians. Thank you for following us. Don't forget to subscribe, share, and like.